You've been accused, maybe of a mistake, a betrayal, or simply of being wrong. Your first instinct, to explain, to defend yourself. And in that moment, you have already lost, because defense is not strength, it is submission. Today, I will show you Machiavelli's ancient trick to reverse this trap and flip the power in your favor instantly. In The Prince, Niccolò Machiavelli understood a truth that most people still ignore. In politics, in court, in love, in business, the one who explains loses. The ruler never rushes to prove themselves. The king does not stand trial before the peasants, and neither should you. Instead, the master of power turns accusation into advantage, shifting the burden back to the accuser and walking away untouchable. You see, the moment you defend yourself, you invite the world to believe that you need to. And needing to defend yourself is an admission, subtle but deadly, that the charge has weight. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. The instant you explain, you surrender the high ground. You are no longer the ruler on the throne. You are the prisoner at the dock. Think of how it happens in everyday life. Someone throws an accusation, perhaps casually, perhaps with venom. You lied to me. You rush in with proof, with explanations, with desperate precision, thinking your evidence will erase the doubt. But here's the trap. The more words you use, the more you confirm that their opinion matters to you, that their judgment is worth your time, that they hold a blade over your head. And the audience, whether it is one person or 100, begins to wonder why you are so eager to clear your name. Defense is not strength, it is submission disguised as reason. It says to the world, yes, you have the power to judge me and I will work to earn your approval. But the Machiavellian mind knows that in the arena of power, you must never grant that permission. Your enemy may hold the accusation, but you hold the frame. There is a psychological principle at work here, one older than the printing press, older than the castles and courts where Machiavelli walked. Human beings are suspicious of protest. Denial triggers curiosity. Protest invites deeper investigation. The child with crumbs on his shirt who swears he did not touch the cake makes us look twice at the empty plate. The politician who pounds the podium, insisting on his honesty, only convinces us that dishonesty might be lurking in the shadows. The more you try to prove, the more you prove you are worried. When you defend yourself, you also enter their territory. You start playing on their field with their rules. If they accuse you of greed, you start explaining your generosity. If they accuse you of incompetence, you start listing your achievements. But now you have allowed them to define the subject of the discussion, and no matter how eloquently you speak, you are already following, not leading. You are dancing to their music. The ruler does not do this. The ruler lets accusations die in the air, ignored until the accuser chokes on the silence. Or better, the ruler shifts the weight with a single calm question. Why do you say that? Suddenly the attack is reversed. The accuser must explain themselves, defend themselves, expose their own weakness while you remain untouched. Think of it as a duel. When you defend, you drop your sword and raise a shield. Shields are heavy, they slow you down. Your enemy strikes again and again, and all you can do is block. But when you refuse to defend, when you let the attack glance off you without acknowledgement, you remain free to choose your moment to strike. There is another layer to this. One Machiavelli himself would relish. Power is a performance. People believe not in what is true, but in what looks strong. The appearance of confidence is often more convincing than any logical explanation. If you stand calm and unmoved in the face of accusations, the crowd will assume you have nothing to fear. If you scramble to explain, the crowd will smell weakness, and weakness invites further attack. This is why kings never argued with peasants. It was not that the peasant could never be right. It was that the moment a king argued, he ceased to be king in the eyes of his court. Power rests on perception, and perception is shattered by the spectacle of justification. You may be tempted to think, but what if I am innocent? Shouldn't I prove it? That is the snare that catches the naive. In the game of power, innocence is irrelevant if it must be argued. You can be innocent and still lose everything if you are forced into a defensive posture. And you can be guilty and walk away untouchable if you never stoop to explain yourself. The outcome depends not on truth, but on the image you project in the moment of attack. The world is not a courtroom where truth is carefully weighed. It is a theater where impressions decide the verdict. To defend yourself is to step into the role of the accused, and once you accept that role, the crowd will see you as guilty until proven innocent, and sometimes even after. Imagine you are accused of dishonesty. The accuser speaks first. You are a liar. The natural instinct is to respond, "No, I'm not." But at that moment, you have stepped inside their frame. The topic of the conversation is no longer whatever you intended. It is now your honesty, and they have declared themselves the judge. You may argue eloquently, but you are still arguing about the very thing they wanted you to argue about. In accepting their frame, you have accepted their power. The frame is like a stage. Whoever builds it chooses the backdrop, the lighting, and even the music playing in the minds of the audience. You may step onto that stage believing you are free to speak, but in truth, you are performing inside a theater that has been designed to make you appear guilty, weak, or foolish. The Machiavellian mind never enters the opponent's stage. Instead, it tears down their frame and replaces it with one of its own. When accused of dishonesty, you do not deny, you redirect. It's strange you would say that. What's your evidence? Now you have shifted the frame entirely. The subject is no longer your honesty. It is their judgment, their credibility, their motives. And the longer they speak, the deeper they step into your frame. This is why politicians rarely answer questions directly. A skilled manipulator knows that the question itself often carries a trap. It assumes a context in which any direct answer will make them look weak. Instead, they pivot, reframing the conversation into a field where they hold the advantage. When asked about a scandal, they speak about their vision for the future. When pressed on a failure, they speak about their opponent's greater failures. The public forgets the original question because they are now walking through the new frame that has been set before them. In personal conflicts, the same principle holds. A colleague questions your competence. If you start listing your accomplishments, you have accepted that competence is in doubt. But if you respond with, "I'm curious," what makes you think that? You force them to justify themselves. Now they are the one on trial. The conversation is taking place in a frame you control, and the audience, whether a single person or a room full of onlookers, begins to view the accuser with suspicion. The frame is not just about words, it is about energy. If you respond with defensive urgency, the accuser's frame remains intact. If you respond slowly, calmly, almost with amusement, you signal that the accusation is irrelevant in your world. The audience senses this shift. They begin to see you as the authority, the one who sets the terms of reality. There is a quiet power in refusing to wrestle inside someone else's definition of the game. In the courts of Renaissance Italy, nobles and ambassadors would never let their rivals dictate the premise of a debate. To do so was to admit subordination. Instead, they would take any accusation and twist it, reframe it until the original charge seemed petty, misguided, or absurd. Often, the accuser would leave more damaged than the accused. The genius of controlling the frame is that it does not require you to disprove anything. You can leave the truth untouched, but by shifting the focus, you make the truth irrelevant to the outcome. The audience remembers the frame more than the facts. This is why rulers rewrite history, not by altering events, but by altering the way those events are understood. To master this is to hold invisible strings. Your words are not answers, they are stage directions. So your tone is not reaction, it is choreography. Every move you make pulls the conversation away from their territory and into yours. The accuser thinks they are leading the charge, but they are marching into a fortress you have built in real time. The weak man argues within the frame given to him. The strong man changes the frame so completely that the original argument becomes unrecognizable, and the crowd, unable to remember where it began, simply follows the one who now seems to be in command. When someone confronts you, their goal is simple: to push you into a corner where you must explain yourself. This is not an innocent request for truth. It is a move to put you beneath them in the hierarchy of the moment. They speak, you answer. They judge, you justify. They are the ruler, you are the subject. Machiavelli knew that this structure must be reversed immediately, and the easiest way to reverse it is with a question. The instant you are accused, instead of defending, you shift the pressure back onto them. They say, "You've betrayed my trust." You don't respond with, "No, I haven't." You say, "What makes you believe that?" Now they are the one under interrogation. They must explain, they must prove, they must expose their reasoning. It changes the posture of the conversation. By asking the question, you subtly declare yourself the examiner, the judge. They become the one scrambling to give satisfactory answers. The audience, whether it's one person or a room full of people, feels the shift. You are no longer on trial. They are. Questions have another hidden advantage. They buy you time. In the heat of accusation, most people react emotionally. They rush to defend themselves before thinking, often making mistakes that strengthen the accuser's case. But when you ask a question, you slow everything down. You give yourself space to read their face, to assess their emotional state, to watch their body language. In that pause, you can decide your next move with precision rather than panic. And here is where the Machiavellian art becomes clear. Not all questions are equal. A weak question seeks clarification. What do you mean? A strong question places doubt. Why would you think that? A stronger question exposes their motives. Who told you that? Who told you? And the strongest question makes the accuser appear foolish without you ever insulting them. That's interesting. Why would you believe something so unlikely? Every variation forces them to defend themselves instead of you. You must also understand the psychology of the audience. Humans are naturally suspicious of someone who has to justify themselves, but they are equally suspicious of someone who cannot justify an accusation. By turning the spotlight on your accuser, you allow them to stumble in public. Their uncertainty, hesitation, or contradictions will erode their credibility far faster than any speech you could give in your own defense. Think of a chess game. If you are attacked and respond by blocking, you are playing their game. But if you respond with a counterattack, you force them to react to you. The question is that counterattack, not loud, not aggressive, but surgical. It forces them to spend their mental energy explaining instead of pressing forward. The initiative changes hands, and you now dictate the rhythm of the exchange. There is a reason lawyers are trained to answer questions with more questions during cross-examinations. The goal is not to reveal the truth directly, it is to make the other side unravel in their own words. Once a person starts defending their statement, they reveal their assumptions, their weaknesses, and often their emotional instability. And in matters of perception, instability is fatal. Even in casual disputes, the same tactic applies. A friend implies you've been neglecting them. Instead of rushing to apologize or list reasons, you ask, "What makes you feel that way?" They must now dig into their emotions, examine their own biases, and articulate their position. In that process, they often realize their case is weaker than they believed. You have not argued. You have simply given them a mirror in which their own words begin to work against them. The brilliance of attacking by question is that it appears harmless. To the uninformed, you are simply seeking clarity. But in reality, you are seizing the high ground, shifting the burden, and forcing the opponent into a reactive state. You are making them play your game without them even realizing it. When accusations come, the facts matter far less than the impression you leave behind. The crowd does not weigh every piece of evidence like a careful judge. They glance, they feel, and they decide based on the signals you send. If you look rattled, if you rush to explain yourself, if you act as though the attack has pierced you, they will believe it has. But if you remain calm, untouched, and almost amused, they will believe you are unshakable, even if the truth is far more fragile. This is why kings in ancient courts would ignore certain insults, not because they were harmless, but because to acknowledge them would be to lower themselves to the level of the accuser. The king's silence was not weakness, it was theater. It told the audience, "This is beneath me. I will not even waste breath on it." That display of untouchability was worth more than any defense could ever buy. Perception is a game of symbols. A confident posture, an unbroken voice, a slow and deliberate choice of words. These are the tools of someone who understands that every second of a confrontation is being judged, not just for the content of what is said, but for the aura it projects. If your accuser seems agitated, emotional, or desperate while you appear composed and in control, the balance shifts in your favor without a single fact being proven. In the court of public opinion, there are no transcripts. No one rewinds the moment to check every detail. They remember the feeling you left them with. Were you calm? Were you unafraid? Did you appear certain of your own authority? If the answer is yes, they will follow you, even if your words were few. And if the answer is no, they will begin to doubt you, even if every fact was on your side. Think about the commanders who led armies despite never being the strongest or the bravest on the battlefield. Their soldiers followed because they radiated certainty. Even in chaos, they looked like they knew exactly what to do. That appearance alone can inspire loyalty, create fear, and win battles without blood being spilled. The same principle applies in a boardroom, in politics, or in a private argument. When you understand that power is perception, you stop trying to win every argument by proving you are right. Instead, you aim to look like the one who never needed to prove anything in the first place. Your confidence becomes the evidence. Your refusal to engage in petty disputes becomes the proof of your superiority. You become the mountain in the storm, unshaken, unmoved, inevitable. This does not mean you ignore all threats. The Machiavellian mind knows that sometimes you must strike back, but even then, the strike is theatrical. It is timed and framed to reinforce the perception you wish to project, not as retaliation from someone wounded, but as a demonstration of dominance from someone in command. Those who fail in power often do so because they confuse truth with perception. They think if they just present the facts, people will see reality clearly. But reality is filtered through emotions, biases, and the images we project. A trembling truth will lose to a confident lie. A calm face will outweigh 100 frantic explanations. The art lies in controlling what they see, not in arguing over what is real. Once you master this, you will understand why Machiavelli warned rulers to focus less on being truly virtuous and more on appearing virtuous. Appearances are the currency of power. They are the armor that protects you, the weapon that strikes for you, the crown that the people place on your head, even if it is made of paper. Remember, the one who defends kneels, the one who questions commands. Next time you face an accusation, do not explain. Do not rush to clear your name. Instead, stand calm, turn the question back, and let the other side collapse under the weight of their own attack. Machiavelli would approve, and so will your enemies when it's far too late.